Welcome to the Evolutionaries podcast. I'm Randy Harrington.
And I'm Carmen Valake.
And Carmen, we are talking about a very interesting phenomenon. It was reported in the New York Times very recently.
Yes, recently they published an article called The Rise of the New Groupthink.
Yeah, groupthink, of course, is the phenomenon where groups of people who are all smart and wonderful get together and then make really stupid decisions
Yeah.
because they don't criticize one another and they don't actually have good deliberative conversation.
Right. And the new rise of groupthink is really this idea that collaboration is king. And we see it from the way grade schools look today. Everything around learning philosophy now is all about small groups and putting people together and everything. You see offices today now with no barriers, no more cubicles. It's just all, let's all be together. We just work together. It's all interchangeable and it's cool.
And those of us with gray hair go, oh, give me a cubicle and a...
Yeah, there's actually, in this New York Times article, there's a great cartoon of a person who's taken a table and turned it sideways and they're hiding behind it trying to, pretend like it's a cubicle.
You go into these open plan offices and you're like, wow.
And it's the hip new wave of the future. And there's a lot of belief that this sort of, it's not just the groupthink, it's the extroverted, charismatic exchange of ideas. A lot of people worry that Steve Jobs passing away is going to be the end of innovation at Apple. And there's,
right.
There's so much talking. And a lot of people look at Steve Jobs and say, well, there's clearly an evolutionary. But research that you and I have been talking about really pretty much for as long as we've been doing this work, people who've heard us talk about flow and philosophies from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and
nicely done.
Thank you. It's a tough one to pronounce, and we'll spell it on our website for anybody who's interested in tracking it down. But there's a lot of research out there over decades that shows that reflection and solitude are where a lot of creativity and innovation is birthed.
That's right.
So,
when we were first, our company was first started back just after the year 2000, we spent a lot of time talking about bubble time was one of the phrases that we used when we worked with high-tech companies. And we would go to the high-tech leadership and say, you need to ensure that all of your employees have the opportunity to come to you and say, I can finish this project in 5 hours if I have some bubble time. And bubble time means I'm not going to take phone calls. I'm not going to deal with anybody else's issues. I'm going to be able to just lock myself into a place and get it done.
Right.
But I can't have all these interruptions. And it was amazing because people in the high-tech environment, in the coding environment, have to have that bubble time to actually move projects forward.
Absolutely.
And so now what we're seeing is that it's really a key to innovation. And when we're in these, think tank, literally, where we're all interacting 24/7, it's extremely difficult to get that bubble time.
Absolutely. And I think we start to lose, because it's not the charismatic, magnetic Steve Jobs, we lose the focus on somebody like the Steve Wozniaks, who are there toiling away in that bubble that you speak of, and that a lot of the innovation and creativity is really coming out of that.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing, again, is that we need to have everything all the time. We need to have the experience of a strong communicator who can share ideas, who can tell the story, but that can't be at the expense of the quiet, lonely work that really moves big, complicated projects forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I read this article, I started thinking, well, I think when we talk about evolutionaries, sometimes we're making the error of talking too much about these sort of charismatic individuals, and ask myself the question, can you be an introvert and be an evolutionary?
And the answer is, yeah.
Totally.
Hello. Yeah, absolutely. Really the communication affect that a person puts out is just one part of the evolutionary story. And one of the things, I'm going to make this as a hypothesis. I'm not sure this is true, but my experience says that this is true. The less glib evolutionary leaders tend to be the ones that are more careful. Planning is a big part of what they do. They're not just going to go into a meeting and wing it. They're going to have their ducks in a row. They're going to have communication collateral built. They're going to know what they're going to say, and they're going to know how to optimize their influence in every single situation. And one of the things that we're seeing, dare I say, the the more glib evolutionaries do is they're wasting influence. They're using that one tool consistently, and they're not taking advantage of all the tools in their toolbox. And I say that as a guy who does that.
Yeah, well, I was just
I'm pointing at myself on this one.
I was just doing a little self-assessment there. And I thought, yeah, I think it's because it works. You do something and it works, and so you go, oh, aha, there, I'll just use that. But it is lazy, isn't it?
It really is. I've been working with a friend and colleague and mentor for many years, a guy named Ty Warren. And we worked together on a project, and we met in the hotel the night before. And I said, so are you ready to go? And he goes, we're just going to wing it, right? And I said, well, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. But the truth of it was that was kind of it.
I think that's what you and I did in our first keynote too.
Well, yeah, that's a great story. We should tell that story sometime.
Maybe we will.
But yeah, you're right, and I do think it's not good. And so one of the things I'm loving as a consultant is I'm loving working with executives in some very large corporations that are more introverted, they are more quiet, and they are the ones that are doing the best work because they're putting together very complex, nuanced, sustained communication packages that allow them to optimize their leadership influence precisely because they're uncomfortable with it naturally, So they're using that as an advantage. So are they evolutionary leaders? Oh my, yes. And I would argue maybe even more effective than those who come to it so easily.
There you go. So we have been asking for nominations of evolutionaries that we can interview. And if you know somebody who fits this description, we would love to hear about
Maybe they're a little more quiet. Maybe they're a little more thoughtful. They tend to plan an awful lot. But when they execute, they do it with sustained focus and effort. Those people are magical. And if you know one of those people, we'd love to hear about them, love to talk to them.
Yes, please nominate them at our website, evolutionariesbook.com, and we will track them down and get them on the phone.
On the phone, and that'll be an interview here on this podcast, the Evolutionaries podcast, and we're going to look for you next time.